here today joined by Sir Lloyd Dorfman. Sir Lloyd, how are you, sir?
Very good, thank you, thank you. Nice.
Lovely, lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining me. So you're a man who's been involved in so many different businesses and kind of organisations and different areas. How do you choose what interests you? How do you get the opportunities, kind of in terms of what interests you and not, in order to get involved?
Well, I'd like to tell you that there's a great big sort of strategic rationale behind all the things that I've done, but in the reality of it, it's sort of, stuff happens. It's been opportunistic. I was always interested in business. Even when I was at school, I read the financial pages before I read the city page, the sports pages. I didn't go to university. I didn't go to business school. Always wanted to have my own business. Started this one little shop when I was 23 as a money changing shop in central London. And to cut a long 30-year story short, the one little shop became the world's largest retail foreign exchange business. So I built and ran a global operationally intensive business. When I stepped away, I think we were 8,000 people, and I flew around the world meeting with governors of central banks and presidents and prime ministers, and we were the brand. So, and there are many stories, as you can imagine, the real
Yeah.
world of building businesses, things don't go from bottom left to top right in a straight line. Lots of war stories, lots of interesting, amusing things that happened. And then when I stepped away from Travelex, I set up a private office, and today I'm involved in a whole variety of different businesses that range from property and flexible offices through to movies, films, media, theatre. We've just sold an e-commerce software business, and I'm involved in. I've got a fintech business, all sorts of different businesses, and again, it's all opportunistic. There's no great sort of rationale to it.
And is it the kind of, are there traits of the businesses or the people within it that get you interested and kind of mean that you gravitate towards that particular area?
Yeah, every week I get approached from all sorts of different directions, and it's every area that I'm interested in. The people have got to be inspirational. I've got to obviously rate the people that are looking at the businesses. At the end of the day, Nick, everybody thought originally I was a currency expert. I was never a currency expert. I'm just someone who likes building businesses, and particularly challenging businesses, which is what Travelex was and what the flexible office business was. And I always say to them that we like to have a seat on the board. I'm not a great believer in investing in funds, private equity funds, or anything like that. We like to get a bit more involved. We like to add value. I always say to these businesses that an opportunity for you is an opportunity for us. A problem for you is a problem for us, and we don't want to run your business, but we've seen these problems in all sorts of different guises, or the same problems, and we'd like to help and add value. And that's sort of what we do. We're good shareholders, if I say so myself.
Can I ask, kind of in terms of your journey within your own businesses and being part of other businesses, and you mentioned it before, kind of there's been a lot of talk over the last however many years about kind of the whole concept of imposter syndrome and kind of being in that business and thinking, why are these people looking at me and thinking, kind of, I know everything. Was that something you faced or something you had to kind of deal with, and how did you get past it to be able to have those conversations?
I was sort of conscious that, I was, certainly in the first sort of 30 years of my business career, I was sort of learning on the job. I didn't know the answers. I didn't even know the bloody questions. But I sort of learned as I went along, and I prided myself on surrounding myself with people whose views I respected. But at the end of the day, if you're the boss, you're the governor. You listen to everybody. Most decisions in business are sort of 80% common sense. It's the other 20% where the way forward is not obvious. That needs a bit more thought. And those can be quite lonely moments, particularly when, particularly however many professional advisors you have around you. At the end of the day, you have to make the
Yeah.
call.
And are you seeing kind of in like again with everything that's happened over the last 5 6 years, are you seeing a different trait of personality rising up kind of in the world of business, or is it the same core beliefs and same core strengths that are rising to the top?
Well, I think that to be an entrepreneur, basically got to be interested in two things. One is making money, but to be honest with you, you don't need to be an entrepreneur these days to make money.
Mm,
So it's not just about the money. It's about being in control of your own destiny. It's about being creative, flexible, boldly going where no one's ever boldly thought to go before. And at the end of the day, and often when I'm talking about entrepreneurship, you know, I end up by saying, it may not be the biggest ship and it may not be the fastest ship, but it's your bloody ship.
mm,
And I think, and invariably, well, most people sort of nod back knowingly because that's sort of what it's about. So I think coming back to your question, I think styles and approaches change. But at the end of the day, you know, if you want to be an entrepreneur and build a business, you've got to be up for risk. Not everybody's up for that. Um, and, you've got to be able to take the knocks. Persistence is everything.
yeah.
And you've got to be able to handle that. And not everybody can do that. In fact, recently I've come across a couple of cases where the businesses had great potential. On the face of it, there was anything to go for, but in the end, the founders of those businesses didn't quite have it.
Thank you. Fascinating. Can I ask one last question for you? You've held a pivotal role for many years in the world of theatre, and the National Theatre renamed one of their theatres after you. How did that make you feel, and kind of what does it mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved the performing arts, and I've done all sorts of things. I've chaired I was on the board of the National Theatre, as you know. I've chaired the Roundhouse. I'm currently chairing the Royal Opera House, which is the Royal Opera and the Royal Ballet, which is probably our biggest, arts institution, government-funded arts institution. As far as the National Theatre is concerned, yeah, I mean, it was, the whole relationship was an amazing journey. Interestingly, it was a journey that began over a stupid conversation over dessert at a dinner party. And, in fact, as an aside, it was Mark's aunt, an uncle, who was the hostess of the dinner party. And that stupid conversation led me to meet the then newly incoming director of the National Theatre, who was Nick Heitner, who was just taking over from Trevor Knight. And he'd come up with this idea of having £10 cheap seats, and he said there would be a sponsor. The only problem he had was he didn't have a sponsor. And to cut another long story short, and a brief interruption by the Iraq War, when it nearly didn't happen, I ended up being the sponsor, agreeing to do it. And we sort of, if you read Nick Heitner's biography, he says that Travelex owned the £10 note as we did these groundbreaking £10 tickets. And then I joined the board, and then they had this. After that, they had this sort of fundraising campaign, which I ended up agreeing to be the lead donor of, and then they renamed the theatre. And I mean, this is a longer story for another day, but it was quite a special. Initially, I dismissed the idea, and then I thought about it and thought, actually, it's quite a special thing. This was the National Theatre, a theatre in the National Theatre, and I thought, what a great legacy. As far as my grandchildren, great grandchildren, and perhaps generations of Dorfmans to come, that will be a nice association to have. But I've spent across in the charitable world. I've done the arts stuff. I've chaired Prince's Trust. I've chaired Prince's Trust International, which was a startup for the then Prince of Wales, now King, back in 2015. I've been a governor of my school. I've done things within the Jewish community to fighting anti-Semitism, which is a difficult problem at the moment. And I've seen, as far as the charitable world is concerned, I've been a donor, I've been a fundraiser, I've been a sponsor, I've been a trustee, I've been a chairman. I've seen charities in the best of times, and I've seen charities in the worst of times. But I think it's important. It's important, whatever money you make, to give something back. It's also important to give time as well as money. And again, when I'm talking about this stuff, again, there's no great strategic document that's driving it. And I mean, I've ended up being involved in, projects at Westminster Abbey and St Paul's Cathedral, which for a nice Jewish boy is a bit strange, but they were really, I mean, the St Paul's Cathedral thing was creating the first online COVID memorial and then physical memorial in the cathedral, which was a very special thing to be doing during COVID. And Westminster Abbey was the first building project at Westminster Abbey for 275 years. So, I've done a lot of these things, and it's really quite interesting. And I'm also, honorary colonel of the 3rd Battalion, the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. I come from no military background whatsoever, but it's a very special and privileged involvement, and I've been helping them, not so much raising money, helping them raise money, but also helping them to give some advice. But it's a very special thing to do, and I like to have all these different plates spinning.
I think that's what comes across so much in terms of you have so many different things and you enjoy them, which is the most incredible thing. Thank you so much indeed for your time. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you, and have a lovely day.
All right. Have a great Christmas for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.